The massive crystalline dome of the Galactic Council stretched across 3 kilometers of gleaming metal and starlight. Ships from 1,000 worlds docked at its outer rings, their exotic designs creating a tapestry of alien engineering that defied imagination. Plasma conduits pulsed with blue energy along the structure's surface, while gravity fields kept the atmosphere stable for the countless species gathering within. Ambassador Vexthar of the Quellan Empire stood 12 feet tall, his forearms adjusting the quantum translation device mounted on his chitinous chest. His compound eyes tracked the approaching human shuttle, a sleek vessel that seemed almost primitive compared to the energy-based craft of the Ethereal Collective or the living bioships of the Zephyrian Hive. Yet something about its simple, brutal efficiency made him uneasy. The shuttle's docking clamps engaged with a satisfying thunk that echoed through the bay. Vexthar watched through the observation port as 3 figures emerged from the human craft. They moved with a predator's grace, their bipedal forms adapted for a world that had clearly been unkind to its inhabitants. Captain Kim Woo-jin stepped onto the council platform first, his dark eyes scanning the assembled representatives with the calm assessment of a career soldier. His uniform bore no decorations, no symbols of rank beyond simple chevrons, yet every alien in the chamber could sense the authority radiating from him. Behind him came Dr. Park Minna, her scientific instruments disguised as jewelry, and Commander Lee Dae-ho, whose cybernetic implants suggested a species comfortable with merging flesh and machine. The council chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, its walls displaying real-time holographic feeds from across the galaxy. Representatives from the gas giant dwellers of Theta Prime floated in their containment spheres, while the silicon-based crystalline collective projected themselves as geometric light patterns. The insectoid hive queens communicated through pheromone clouds, and the machine intelligences of the Nexus Alliance hummed with electronic harmonics. "Honored council members," Kim began, his voice carrying clearly through translation matrices that converted his words into everything from ultrasonic frequencies to bioluminescent patterns. "Humanity seeks membership in your esteemed alliance. We bring knowledge, resources, and a sincere desire for peace among the stars." The translation caused a brief delay as various species processed concepts like peace through their unique understanding. For the warrior clans of Proxima, peace meant the temporary absence of conquest. For the traders of the Merchant Republic, it meant profitable stability. But something in Kim's tone suggested a different definition entirely. Dr. Thys, the Council's chief xenobiologist, manipulated her holographic displays with 6 delicate appendages. Her species, the observers, had evolved from prey animals, giving them an instinctual ability to spot predators. As she reviewed Earth's cultural achievements, her anxiety grew. The humans displayed remarkable creativity. Their art moved beyond mere aesthetic pleasure into emotional manipulation. Their music could induce physiological responses across species barriers, and their literature explored concepts of sacrifice and determination that bordered on fanatical. The holographic records showed human cities rising from atomic ash. Their space program built literally on weapons of mass destruction, their first steps into space powered by controlled explosions. Even their peaceful endeavors carried an undertone of barely contained violence. Their hospitals were built like fortresses, their schools taught children to hide from active threats, and their entertainment glorified conflicts that most species would consider genocidal. "Captain Kim," Dr. Thys inquired, her translator struggling with the diplomatic phrasing, "your species' historical response to conflicts appears rather thorough. How do you explain the pattern of escalation we observe?" The human delegation exchanged glances that spoke of shared combat experience and tactical coordination. Kim's expression showed genuine confusion rather than defensiveness. "I'm not sure I understand the question, Dr. Thys. Could you be more specific about what concerns you?" Around the chamber, subtle alarm pheromones began releasing as various species recognized the humans' honest bewilderment. The question wasn't difficult. Every civilized species understood the concept of proportional response. Dr. Thys manipulated her display, showing comparative conflict resolution across the galaxy. Most species, when faced with a territorial dispute, might deploy patrol vessels. When confronted with piracy, they increase security or pay tribute. When dealing with rebels, they offer concessions or limited military action. Your species seems to completely eliminate the source of problems. Well, yes, Commander Lee interjected, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on the displays. Wouldn't temporary solutions just allow the problems to resurface? The chamber's environmental systems kicked into overdrive as hundreds of species began releasing stress indicators simultaneously. Several of the more nervous representatives activated personal shield generators. Dr. Theiss tried a different approach. Do you have terms in your language for excessive force, for responses that go beyond what the situation requires, what you might call overkill? The human delegation's translation devices sparked and whined as quantum processors attempted to find equivalent concepts in human languages. Korean, English, Mandarin, Arabic, Spanish, every human tongue was scanned for matching ideas. The machines found partial concepts like unnecessary or wasteful, but nothing that matched the core meaning. Park Minna leaned forward, her scientific curiosity engaged. Could you define these terms more precisely? The concept seems foreign. To our thinking, why would someone apply insufficient force to solve a problem? Wouldn't that guarantee the problem's return? A profound silence fell over the council chamber. Even the machine intelligences stopped their electronic humming. The bioluminescent species dimmed their lights in what could only be described as existential dread. Ambassador Vexthar's 4 hearts beat in increasingly rapid patterns as the implications became clear. These humans didn't understand concepts that formed the foundation of galactic civilization. They approached every problem with the assumption that half measures were failures waiting to happen, yet their presentation materials showed no signs of aggression. They offered trade agreements, scientific cooperation, cultural exchange, and mutual defense pacts. Their ships carried humanitarian supplies rather than invasion forces. They spoke of peace with obvious sincerity. The terrifying realization spread through the chamber like a plague. Humans weren't lying about wanting peace. They simply defined peace as the permanent elimination of anything that could threaten it. After 3 hours of deliberation conducted in hushed emergency sessions, Ambassador Vexithar returned to the podium. His voice carried the weight of 10,000 worlds making a decision they hoped they wouldn't regret. Humanity is granted provisional membership status for trial evaluation. Welcome to the Galactic Council. The humans smiled with genuine warmth and gratitude, completely unaware that they had just terrified the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. The asteroid belt, designated as Mining Zone Theta 7, drifted silently through space, its rocky chunks containing enough rare metals to fund a small planet's economy for decades. For 3 months, the Zenthari Corporation and Veclon Industries had been locked in a bitter dispute over extraction rights, with both sides claiming the same 17 asteroids under different colonial treaties. What started as paperwork confusion had escalated into harassment campaigns, sabotaged equipment, and corporate espionage. Mining drones clashed in micro-battles among the asteroids, their laser cutters repurposed as weapons. The situation had become embarrassing enough that the Galactic Council decided to test their newest members by assigning the dispute to humanity. The Council expected a standard resolution. Perhaps a human mediator would arrive in a small diplomatic vessel, review the contracts, and impose a fine or resource-sharing agreement. Simple, clean, and temporary enough to let both corporations save face while establishing humanity's competence in galactic affairs. Instead, the early warning sensors detected something that made traffic controllers across 3 star systems double-check their instruments. A massive fleet signature was approaching Theta 7, moving with the coordinated precision of a military invasion force. Captain Choi Sung-min commanded the task force from the bridge of the UES Determination, a kilometer-long battleship whose hull bristled with enough firepower to crack a moon. His fleet consisted of what humans modestly called a small peacekeeping force. 12 battleships, 6 carrier groups launching wings of fighter bombers, and a full engineering corps equipped with mobile shipyards and construction platforms. These human vessels moved with terrifying efficiency, their formation patterns suggesting decades of combat experience. Each ship's hull gleamed with reactive armor plating and energy shields that flickered like soap bubbles in starlight. Weapon ports remained closed, but their targeting systems painted everything in the asteroid belt with invisible targeting lasers. Aboard the mining stations, alarms screamed as proximity sensors registered the approaching fleet. Kralex, the Zenthari mining supervisor, watched through the observation deck as human ships took positions around every asteroid, their formation creating an impenetrable web of overlapping fire zones. "By the Seven Suns," whispered his assistant, a nervous Belverian whose scales had turned pale with fear. "They're surrounding the entire belt. What kind of mediation requires this much firepower?" The communication channels crackled with Captain Choi's voice, translated into the various languages of the mining crews. "Attention all personnel in Mining Zone Theta 7. This is Captain Choi Sungmin of the Earth Defense Force. You are ordered to cease all operations and prepare for transport to the flagship for immediate negotiations." Transport shuttles launched from the human carriers, their sleek forms cutting through space with predatory grace. These weren't diplomatic courier vessels. They were military transports with heavy armor and defensive systems designed to extract personnel from hostile environments. Within an hour, executives from both corporations found themselves aboard the UES Determination, standing in a conference room that looked more like a war planning center. Holographic displays showed real-time tactical analysis of the entire star system, while human officers moved with the quiet efficiency of a species bred for conflict. Captain Choi studied the corporate representatives with dark eyes that seemed to catalogue every weakness. Beside him, Commander Yoon So-young manipulated holographic controls that displayed the disputed asteroids in perfect three-dimensional detail, each rock's composition and mineral content mapped to the molecular level. "Gentlemen," Choi began, his tone conversational despite the military atmosphere, "we've reviewed your dispute. The situation is clearly unsustainable and requires immediate resolution." Kralex stepped forward, his four arms gesturing in what his species considered a diplomatic posture. "Captain, surely we can resolve this through standard arbitration. The Galactic Commerce Code provides clear procedures for such disputes, a neutral mediator, some financial compensation, perhaps a revised extraction schedule." "That would be a temporary solution," Commander Yoon interrupted, her fingers dancing across her control interface. "Our analysis shows 17 similar disputes in this sector alone, with 43 more brewing in adjacent systems. The underlying problem isn't your specific contract disagreement, it's the fundamental inefficiency of your extraction and territorial assignment systems." Through the conference room's massive viewports, the corporate executives watched in growing horror as human engineering vessels began moving the disputed asteroids. Massive tractor beam arrays, originally designed for battlefield salvage operations, gently pulled the rocky chunks away from both mining stations. "What are you doing to our asteroids?" gasped Vexilon, the Veclon Industries representative, his translator struggling with his species' high-pitched panic frequencies. "Relocating them to neutral space," Choi replied matter-of-factly. "Our engineering core is establishing a shared-access mining platform with rotating extraction schedules, automated oversight systems, and built-in conflict resolution protocols. Both your corporations will receive equal access to all resources, with production quotas based on actual operational efficiency rather than territorial claims." The human construction platforms moved like mechanical spiders through the asteroid field, their assembly arms extending to install monitoring stations, communications relays, and defensive platforms. In hours, they were building infrastructure that would normally take months to plan and years to construct. "But Captain," Kralex stammered, watching his company's exclusive mining rights evaporate before his eyes, "this was a simple contract dispute. A few thousand credits in fines would have sufficed. You're completely restructuring our entire operation." Choi's expression showed genuine puzzlement. "Why would we apply a temporary solution that allows the same problem to recur? We've analyzed the root causes of resource conflicts in this sector and designed a permanent framework that makes future disputes mathematically impossible." Commander Yoon's tactical display expanded to show neighboring star systems. "Our preliminary scans indicate similar inefficiencies throughout the outer rim. We've already dispatched engineering teams to 17 systems to implement the same protocols. Within 6 months, resource-based conflicts should be eliminated. From this entire galactic arm, the corporate executives stared in stunned silence as red dots appeared across the tactical display, each representing a human task force moving to resolve similar disputes with the same overwhelming thoroughness. But the cost, Kralex whispered, calculating the economic implications of humanity's solution. Cost? Yoon looked genuinely confused. This infrastructure investment will prevent an estimated 2,947 potential conflicts over the next 50 years, eliminate the need for 340 separate arbitration proceedings, and increase overall resource extraction efficiency by 37%. The cost-benefit analysis strongly favors permanent solutions. Through hyperspace communication arrays, Council observers transmitted frantic reports back to their homeworlds. The humans had responded to a minor commercial dispute by militarizing an entire star system and rebuilding its economic infrastructure from scratch. What they called mediation looked suspiciously like conquest, executed with the mechanical precision of a species that had turned problem-solving into an art form. As the corporate representatives were shuttled back to their now reorganized mining operations, they passed human patrol vessels establishing permanent security corridors throughout the asteroid belt. The message was clear. Humanity had solved their problem so thoroughly that it could never happen again. The Galactic Council's test had revealed something terrifying about their newest members. Humans didn't just resolve conflicts, they permanently eliminated the conditions that allowed conflicts to exist in the first place. And they did it with the cheerful efficiency of a species that genuinely believed they were being helpful. The cantina on Blackport Station reeked of desperation and cheap synthetic alcohol. Neon lights flickered across scarred metal walls, while creatures from a dozen worlds nursed drinks and nursed grudges. In the darkest corner, where the artificial gravity was weakest and the air recyclers wheezed with age, the most dangerous predators in the galaxy held court. Krex the Terrible stood, 7 feet tall, his cybernetic arms gleaming with weapon modifications that would make a battleship's gunner jealous. Scars crisscrossed his face like a roadmap of violence, each one telling the story of a rival who had underestimated the leader of the Void Reapers. Around him, his lieutenants represented the worst the galaxy had to offer: escaped war criminals, rogue military officers, and psychopaths who had turned murder into an art form. These humans, Krex growled, his voice artificially amplified by vocal implants. They think they're tough because they scared some mining corporations. Let me tell you something about fear, boys. Real fear is when a merchant captain sees our skull and crossbones burning across his hull. The gathered pirates laughed, a sound like grinding metal and breaking glass. They had heard about humanity's heavy-handed response to the mining dispute. But pirates weren't corporate executives in fancy suits. Pirates were apex predators who had survived by being meaner, faster, and more ruthless than anything else in the void. "Boss," wheezed Slicks, a reptilian Vorthak whose species had evolved from pack hunters, "maybe we should test these humans, see if they bleed like everyone else." Krex's cybernetic eye focused on a holographic display showing shipping lanes through the Epsilon sector. Human cargo vessels had been moving through that region for weeks, fat and slow and apparently undefended. The trade routes buzzed with activity as Earth's merchants carried exotic goods between the inner colonies and the frontier worlds. 3 ships, Krex decided, his metal fingers drumming against the table. "We hit 3 of their cargo haulers, take what we want and send a message. If they're smart, they'll start paying tribute like everyone else." Within hours, the Void Reaper's fleet moved through hyperspace like a pack of mechanical wolves. Their ships were cobbled together from salvaged military hardware, stolen technology, and illegal modifications that made them fast, deadly, and nearly impossible to track. Stealth generators borrowed from ancient Wraith technology made them invisible to most sensors, while their weapon systems could punch through military-grade shields. The attacks came without warning. 3 human cargo vessels, the Soul Trader, the Busan Star, and the Incheon Express, found themselves surrounded by pirate raiders in the depths of space. The pirates expected the usual response: Cargo crews would surrender, hand over their most valuable goods and file insurance claims later. Instead, they encountered something they had never seen before. The human crews fought back with improvised weapons and desperate courage, turning their cargo haulers into makeshift warships. Mining lasers became artillery, construction equipment became armor, and the ship's AI systems began broadcasting tactical data to Earth defense forces across the sector. Admiral Han Gi-jun received the distress signals aboard the command vessel, Daegu, flagship of the 3rd Fleet Battle Group. He was a compact man with graying hair and the kind of calm demeanor that came from decades of military service. His bridge crew watched as holographic displays showed the pirate attacks in real time, tracking the raiders' movements through sensor networks that stretched across 3 star systems. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "we've lost contact with all 3 cargo vessels. Preliminary scans suggest complete hull breaches. No survivors detected." Han studied the tactical display with the same expression he might use to examine a weather report. "Begin root cause analysis. I want comprehensive intelligence on these pirates, their base of operations, supply chains, recruitment methods, and financial networks." "Sir?" His communications officer looked confused. "Shouldn't we dispatch patrol vessels to intercept the raiders?" "That would be treating symptoms," Han replied calmly. "Commander Park, initiate Protocol 7, full mobilization." Across human space, the response was swift and overwhelming. The 3rd Fleet Battle Group consisted of 47 warships, including 6 dreadnought-class vessels, whose firepower could reduce a planet's surface to molten glass. But Han's force also included intelligence-gathering ships, economic warfare specialists, and something the galaxy had never seen before: rehabilitation cruisers equipped with psychological analysis equipment and social reconstruction programs. The pirates expected pursuit, maybe a few angry escort ships looking for revenge. Instead, they found themselves facing what could only be described as a military apocalypse, conducted with scientific precision. Major Kang Hye-jin, Han's intelligence officer, worked from a command center that looked like the brain of a mechanical god. Holographic displays showed criminal networks spreading across 32 star systems like a virus, with data streams tracking everything from weapon sales to protection rackets. Her team of analysts included reformed criminals, military intelligence specialists, and sociologists who studied crime like a disease that could be cured. "Admiral," she reported, "we've identified the complete operational structure of the Void. Reapers, 17 base stations, 43 supply depots, 2,947 documented attacks over the past decade, and a network of corrupt officials across 8 different governments." The human response was methodical and terrifying. Instead of chasing individual pirate ships, they began dismantling the entire infrastructure that made piracy possible. Fleet groups appeared simultaneously at pirate bases across the galaxy, not just destroying the facilities, but capturing everyone associated with them: mechanics, suppliers, money launderers, and the corrupt officials who provided protection. On Blackport Station, Krex the Terrible watched in growing horror as human marines stormed through his stronghold with the efficiency of extermination specialists. These weren't the desperate cargo crews he had expected to terrorize. These were professional soldiers who moved like they had been born for war, their armor gleaming with advanced technology and their weapons humming with lethal energy. "Krex the Terrible," announced the lead marine, a woman whose name tag read Sergeant Kim. "You are under humanitarian custody for crimes against interstellar commerce. You will receive psychological evaluation, skills training, and placement in a productive occupation." "Humanitarian custody?" Krex snarled, his cybernetic arms reaching for weapons that were no longer there. "You can't just arrest me. I'm a free citizen of the Outer Rim." "Actually," Major Kang explained as she reviewed her datapad, "our analysis shows that 93% of piracy recruits come from economically disadvantaged worlds with limited legitimate opportunities. We've begun implementation of development programs on 14 worlds to address the root socio-economic factors that drive individuals toward criminal careers." Krex stared at her in disbelief. "We attacked 3 of your ships." "Yes," Admiral Han nodded as he entered the detention area. "And now you'll never attack any ships again. We've also eliminated the conditions that created pirates like you in the first place. Problem solved. Across half the galaxy, human task. Forces were establishing permanent anti-piracy corridors, building economic infrastructure on impoverished worlds, and implementing what they called preventive justice programs. Former pirates found themselves enrolled in job training, psychological counseling, and social integration programs that were more terrifying than any prison. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity responded to 3 stolen cargo ships. By fundamentally restructuring interstellar crime, they didn't just catch the pirates, they eliminated piracy itself as a viable career option. In the depths of space, merchant captains who had paid tribute to pirates for generations suddenly found their trade routes protected by human patrol fleets that never seemed to sleep. The message was clear and terrifying. Humanity had solved the pirate problem so completely that it could never resurface. Dr. Thys had not slept in 72 hours. Her laboratory, normally a pristine sanctuary of scientific inquiry, now resembled a war room where she battled against a terrifying truth. Holographic displays flickered around her like ghosts, each one showing another piece of the puzzle that was slowly driving her to the edge of madness. Her 6 delicate appendages moved frantically across quantum keyboards, pulling up linguistic matrices, historical databases, and psychological profiles. The air recyclers struggled to keep up with the heat generated by dozens of processing units working at maximum capacity. Neural analysis programs ran complex algorithms trying to decode the fundamental structure of human thought patterns. The breakthrough had come while analyzing human entertainment media. Every story, every song, every cultural artifact contained the same underlying theme. Problems were meant to be solved permanently. Human heroes didn't just defeat villains, they eliminated the conditions that created villains in the first place. Their historical figures weren't remembered for winning battles, but for ending wars so completely that they became impossible to restart. Dr. Thys triggered the emergency beacon that would summon the inner circle of the Galactic Council. Within minutes, the most powerful beings in the galaxy began materializing through various forms of faster-than-light travel. Some arrived via quantum teleportation, others through dimensional gateways, and a few simply existed in multiple locations. Simultaneously, Ambassador Vexthar materialized first, his forearms immediately adjusting the atmospheric controls to accommodate the different species gathering in the secure chamber. His compound eyes tracked the data streams flowing across Thys's displays, and even without understanding the content, he could sense the urgency radiating from the normally calm xenobiologist. Counselor Zephrak arrived as a shimmering energy pattern, his crystalline form refracting light into hypnotic patterns. The ancient being had witnessed the rise and fall of 3 galactic civilizations, and his presence usually brought calm to crisis situations. Today, even his eternal serenity seemed shaken. The Hive Queen Ysandra entered through a biological portal, her insectoid form accompanied by the chemical signals that allowed her species to communicate complex emotions. The scent of fear pheromones filled the chamber as she processed the data streams through her collective consciousness. "Honored colleagues," Dr. Thys began, her translator struggling to convey the tremor in her voice, "I've been analyzing human behavioral patterns since their arrival. What I've discovered challenges everything we understand about sentient psychology." The holographic displays shifted to show human brain scans, their neural networks firing in patterns that defied conventional understanding. Where most species showed distinct regions for aggression, diplomacy, and problem-solving, human brains displayed an integrated approach that merged all 3 functions into a single, terrifying whole. "Look at their linguistic structures," Thys continued, manipulating the displays to show translation matrices. "We assumed their lack of words for overkill or excessive force was a simple translation error. But after analyzing over 4,000 human languages, dialects, and historical linguistic variants, the truth is undeniable. These concepts literally don't exist in their cognitive framework." Vexthar leaned forward, his translation device struggling with the implications. "You're suggesting they can't understand the concept of proportional response?" "It's worse than that," Thys replied, her displays shifting to show human military history. The images were disturbing, not because they showed violence, but because they showed the systematic transformation that followed every conflict. They don't fight to achieve victory. They fight to ensure the conflict can never recur. The holographic timeline stretched across the chamber, showing Earth's major conflicts in stunning detail. The Second World War ended not with conquest, but with the complete reconstruction of enemy nations. The American Civil War concluded with attempts to rebuild the entire social structure of half a continent. Even their smallest conflicts resulted in permanent institutional changes designed to prevent similar problems. When humans defeated Nazi Germany, Thys explained, highlighting specific data points, they didn't just occupy the territory, they rewrote the educational system, rebuilt the economy, established new governmental structures, and implemented cultural programs designed to eliminate the ideological roots of fascism. They spent more resources on reconstruction than they had on the war itself. Councillor Zephyrak's crystalline form pulsed with alarmed frequencies. That's impossibly thorough. It gets worse, Thys continued, pulling up more recent data. Look at their response to our test scenarios. The mining dispute wasn't resolved, it was eliminated as a category of problem. They rebuilt the entire resource extraction system across 17 star systems. The pirate attacks weren't stopped. Piracy itself was systematically dismantled as a viable activity. The displays showed the current state of human operations across the galaxy. Construction fleets were building infrastructure on dozens of worlds. Economic development programs were transforming entire planetary economies, and rehabilitation centers were processing former criminals through psychological reconstruction programs that bordered on species-level therapy. They're not learning our diplomatic protocols, Thys said, her voice barely above a whisper. They're systematically identifying and correcting what they perceive as fundamental flaws in galactic civilization. Hive Queen Isandra released a cloud of alarm pheromones that triggered environmental warnings throughout the chamber. Their peace initiatives are conquest by another name. No, Dr. Thys corrected, pulling up psychological profiles that made the assembled council members recoil in horror. That's what makes them so terrifying. They genuinely believe they're being helpful. Every action they take is motivated by sincere desire to prevent suffering and conflict. They can't comprehend why we view their solutions as threatening. The displays showed human diplomatic communications, their tone consistently friendly and cooperative, even as they described programs that would fundamentally alter galactic society. Captain Kim Woo-jin's latest report cheerfully detailed plans to optimize trade routes by establishing permanent monitoring stations in neutral space. Admiral Han Gi-jun had submitted proposals for preventive justice programs that would eliminate crime by restructuring the social conditions that created criminals. Look at their current projects, Thys said, highlighting active human operations across the galaxy. They're not building military bases, they're constructing what they call stability infrastructure. Every installation is designed to permanently prevent the kind of problems that lead to conflict. Ambassador Vexthar studied the tactical displays with growing dread. The human installations formed a network that would effectively monitor and control all major trade routes, resource deposits, and communication hubs in the galaxy. It wasn't an invasion. It was a comprehensive solution to the problem of galactic instability. Their trial membership, whispered Councillor Zephyrak, his ancient wisdom finally grasping the full scope of the situation. They're not learning to function within our existing systems. They're systematically replacing our systems with better ones. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity had been assigned simple diplomatic tasks and had responded by beginning the complete restructuring of galactic civilization. They approached every problem with the assumption that half measures were moral failures, and they possessed the technological capability and psychological determination to implement solutions on a galactic scale. The most terrifying aspect, Dr. Thys concluded, is that their solutions work. Crime rates have dropped to near zero in systems with human oversight. Resource conflicts have been eliminated through their infrastructure programs. Even their rehabilitation centers show unprecedented success rates in transforming violent criminals into productive citizens. The Council's inner circle sat in stunned silence, contemplating a future where humanity had solved all of their problems, whether they wanted those problems solved or not. The humans weren't conquerors or invaders. They were helpers with the power to reshape reality and the absolute conviction that their help was needed everywhere. Outside the chamber, human diplomatic vessels continued their cheerful work, each one carrying proposals for new projects designed to make the galaxy a better place through the complete elimination of anything that might cause future difficulties. The Galactic Council's emergency session had been called in absolute secrecy, but secrets were hard to keep when 10,000 different species all tried to whisper at once. The massive chamber, normally a symbol of unity and cooperation, now felt like a tomb where civilizations came to contemplate their own extinction. Security drones hummed through the air on silent repulsors, their scanning arrays checking for recording devices and unauthorized transmissions. The Council's most advanced jamming systems created a bubble of electronic silence around the proceedings, blocking hyperspace communications and quantum entanglement networks that connected the assembled representatives to their homeworlds. The upper galleries, diplomatic observers from minor worlds pressed against energy barriers to catch glimpses of history in the making. The tension was so thick it seemed to affect the station's artificial gravity, making everyone feel slightly heavier than normal. Even the machine intelligences of the Nexus Alliance had reduced their processing cycles to conserve power, their usual electronic humming replaced by an ominous silence. Dr. Thys stood at the central podium, her 6 appendages trembling as she manipulated holographic displays that showed the full scope of humanity's galactic activities. The data streams painted a picture that was both magnificent and terrifying, a species that approached every problem with the systematic thoroughness of a surgeon removing cancer. "Honored representatives," she began, her voice amplified by translation. Matrices that converted her words into everything from ultrasonic frequencies to bioluminescent patterns. Humanity views galactic peace as requiring the complete optimization of galactic civilization. Every inefficiency, every source of potential conflict, every system that allows problems to recur, they see these as requiring permanent solutions. The holographic displays showed human construction fleets working around the clock across dozens of star systems. Massive engineering vessels, each one larger than most species' capital ships, were building infrastructure projects that dwarfed the achievements of ancient galactic empires. Orbital platforms processed raw materials on industrial scales that made entire planets look like small factories. "They don't understand the concept of acceptable losses or manageable problems," Thys continued, highlighting specific examples. "When we lose ships to stellar anomalies, we adjust our navigation routes. Humans build stellar engineering platforms to stabilize the anomalies themselves. When we face resource shortages, we implement rationing. Humans terraform new worlds and build automated mining fleets to eliminate scarcity as a concept." In the VIP gallery reserved for current member species, the human delegation watched the proceedings with growing confusion. Captain Kim Woo-jin wore the same calm expression he had maintained throughout their trial membership, but his dark eyes tracked the agitated movements of 10,000 alien representatives with the assessment of a career strategist. "Why do they seem so nervous?" Dr. Park Minar whispered, adjusting her scientific instruments to monitor the emotional atmosphere in the chamber. "Our efficiency ratings have exceeded all projected parameters. We've solved problems that have plagued this galaxy for millennia." Commander Lee Dae-ho, his cybernetic implants interfacing directly with the station's information networks, pulled up real-time data on galactic stability indices. Crime down by 73% in systems with human oversight. Resource. Conflicts eliminated entirely in 42 sectors. Trade efficiency up by 200% along optimized routes. By any objective measure, our performance has been exemplary. Below them, Ambassador Vexthar's forearms gestured in patterns that conveyed deep anxiety to those who understood Quellan body language. His compound eyes tracked the assembled representatives, calculating political alignments and voting patterns. with the desperate precision of someone trying to prevent a galactic catastrophe. "We face an unprecedented decision," Vexthar announced, his voice carrying across the chamber with the weight of 10,000 civilizations behind it. "We have two choices before us. We can reject humanity's membership and risk them viewing the Galactic Council itself as a problem requiring permanent solution, or we can accept them as full members, knowing they will systematically help us whether we want that help or not." The chamber erupted in worried murmurs that sounded like 1,000 different forms of controlled panic. Representatives huddled. In species groups, their translators working overtime to convert diplomatic language into the emotional equivalent of existential dread. Before the formal vote could be called, Commander Lee Dae-ho stood up in the gallery, his movement triggering security alerts throughout the chamber. The human officer smiled with the same friendly expression his species had maintained throughout their interactions with galactic civilization. "Honored council members," he began, his words causing a ripple of silence to spread through the assembly. "We appreciate your consideration of our membership application. While you deliberate, we'd like to share some preliminary findings from our analysis of galactic governmental systems." The main holographic display shifted to show organizational charts that mapped the council's structure in excruciating detail. Every department, every bureaucratic process, every inefficiency was highlighted with the clinical precision of a species that had turned optimization into an art form. "We've identified 47,000 inefficiencies in current administrative protocols," Lee continued cheerfully, apparently oblivious to the horror spreading through the chamber. "Our optimization specialists have drafted improvement programs that will eliminate political corruption, reduce processing delays by 94%, and create mathematically guaranteed resource allocation systems." Captain Kim stood to join his colleague, his expression radiating the helpful enthusiasm that had terrified half the galaxy. "We can begin implementation immediately. Our projections indicate we can have the entire galactic government running at optimal efficiency within 18 standard months." Dr. Park Minna nodded with scientific excitement, pulling up additional displays that showed social engineering programs of staggering complexity. "We've also prepared comprehensive solutions for biological incompatibilities between species, economic disparities that create social tension, and cultural conflicts rooted in evolutionary psychology. Once implemented, galactic harmony will be mathematically guaranteed." The chamber fell into the kind of silence that precedes either enlightenment or apocalypse. 10,000 different species, each with their own concept of free will and self-determination, simultaneously realized they were about to be helped by beings who approached assistance with the same thoroughness most species reserved for warfare. Representatives began exchanging glances that spoke of shared terror, transcending species barriers. The warrior clans of Proxima, who had never feared anything that could bleed, found themselves contemplating surrender to an enemy that wanted to optimize them. The ancient machine intelligences calculated probability matrices and came up with results that made their quantum processors spark with electronic panic. "Furthermore," Kim added with the casual tone of someone discussing weekend plans, "we've prepared infrastructure projects that will eliminate the conditions causing 93% of current interstellar disputes. Standardized terraforming, protocols, universal resource distribution networks, and integrated communication systems that will make misunderstandings mathematically impossible." The vote was never formally called. In a moment of unanimous terror that transcended political boundaries, species barriers, and philosophical differences, every single representative raised their appendage, tentacle, or energy field in approval. The motion to grant humanity full membership in the Galactic Council passed with unprecedented unanimity. As the session concluded, Captain Kim approached Ambassador Vexthar with the same friendly smile that had been giving nightmares to galactic leaders for months. His handshake was firm, warm, and filled with the terrible sincerity of someone genuinely excited to help. "We're honored by your trust," Kim said, his words translated into Vexthar's language with mechanical precision. "We've already begun preliminary work on several optimization projects. Where would you like us to start implementing improvements first?" Vexthar looked into the human's dark eyes and saw something that chilled him to his core. Not malice or conquest, but the absolute certainty of someone who knew exactly how to fix everything wrong with the galaxy. The age of acceptable problems had ended. The age of permanent solutions had begun. The end.